The outboard motor's thrum echoed through the cove as Lena Marlowe guided her skiff beneath the fringing reef. At first light, the lagoon glowed a luminous turquoise, the clear water revealing waving gardens of brain and staghorn corals. Palm-thatched dwellings perched on stilts around the shoreline, their weathered planks bleached by sun and salt. Smoke from wood-fired cookstoves mingled with the salt breeze, carrying the sweet, smoky scent of dried fish. Lena secured her boat to a wooden piling and stepped onto the barnacled dock, her feet sinking slightly into damp driftwood fragments. In her pack she carried a compact hydrophone, a set of color-coded training tags, vials of fish oil treats, and a notepad crammed with dolphin behavior diagrams. She brushed back a lock of sun-bleached hair and took in the scene. Children splashed in tidal pools, their laughter like silver bells. Fishermen hauled empty nets across bright sand. Elders gathered in a circle beneath a tamarind tree, their faces drawn with worry. An old man rose first, Chief Toma, his deep-lined skin weathered by a lifetime under the tropical sun. He held out a gnarled hand in greeting. "Welcome, Lena Marlowe," he rumbled in Halyuni, the local tongue. "The sea has turned cruel to us." Behind him, a dozen villagers fell silent, eyes tracking the horizon where seaward clouds gathered. Lena bowed respectfully and replied in accented Halyuni, "Thank you for inviting me. I've heard your nets have run dry and that dolphins still come here each dawn. I believe they can help." She unzipped her pack and revealed a small glass jar of shimmering fish oil cubes. "May I try?" The villagers exchanged uncertain glances. A fishing boy stepped forward, cupped his hands, and scooped a cube. He held it aloft, hesitation rippling across his sun-bronzed face, then tossed it toward a trio of spinner dolphins arching through the breakers. Time seemed to stretch. The dolphins surfaced, eyes glinting like polished obsidian, and circled the offering. They nudged it gently with their rostra, eyes flicking to Lena, then snapped it into their tooth ridges with a triumphant flick of their tails. A collective gasp rose from the dock. Chief Toma's stern brow softened. "If the dolphins trust you," he said, voice thick with relief, "perhaps we may trust you too." Lena inhaled the humid air, tasting promise in the salt. As she watched the dolphins disappear into deep blue channels, she felt the first stirrings of hope for a broken reef, for an empty village, and for a friendship waiting beneath the waves. Lena woke before dawn the next morning, her heart thrumming with anticipation as she loaded her gear onto the skiff: a compact hydrophone, color-coded silicone training tags, a waterproof slate, and a pouch of freshly caught sardines preserved in coconut oil. The sea was glassy in the first light, pale lavender ripples rippling beneath the rising sun. As she nudged the boat away from the dock, villagers gathered along the stilts, their silhouettes framed by bobbing lanterns and hopeful eyes. Finding the dolphins. Guided by the hydrophone's gentle chirrs, Lena navigated past the reef crest into deeper water. She paused to lower the microphone over the side. A soft, rhythmic clicking filled her earpiece. Dolphin echolocation pulses, mingled with lighter whistles of curiosity. She smiled, heart lifting. Slowly, she baited a ring of water with tiny fish oil cubes, watching as the bait plume drifted like a honeyed cloud. Moments later, a sleek back broke the surface. Aurora, a young spinner dolphin marked by a distinctive crescent notch in her dorsal fin. Behind her came three companions, their sleek forms arcing in unison. Lena held her breath as Aurora tentatively approached the oil slick. With a graceful flick of her tail, the dolphin scooped up a cube, then locked eyes with Lena, an electric moment of recognition. The first surface session. Lena slipped into the warm lagoon in a thin wetsuit, tank flaring bubbles as she descended to ankle depth. Aurora surfaced nearby, head tilted, whisking a spray of water as if testing the waters. Lena knelt slowly, arms folded to appear non-threatening. "Peace," she whispered in soft tones, extending a palm with a single fish oil treat. Aurora hovered, pantsing the oil cube gently between her beak-like jaws, then pressed it into Lena's hand in a delicate, tremulous gesture of acceptance. Over the next hour, Lena introduced simple signals: a raised fist for wait, an open palm for come, and a gentle whistle for good. Aurora responded, flicking her tail to charge or halt, with increasing confidence. As villagers watched from the dock, Lena's laughter sounded like sunshine, and Aurora's excited chuffs echoed below, a duet of mutual trust. Underwater bonding. For the rest of the week, Lena dove daily at dawn and dusk, entering the dolphins' world rather than expecting them to come to her. She recorded their whistles and clicks, mapping each sound to behaviors, curiosity, play, hunger. She practiced precision tagging on two calmer individuals, sliding a bright blue tag around a pectoral fin and noting its fit in her waterproof log, tag A on Aurora, tag B on her juvenile companion, Mira. Each evening, villagers peered through spyglass scopes to confirm the tags, marveling at the sight of Lena guiding dolphins by gentle touch rather than force. As trust deepened, Lena introduced her third colleague, a 3-meter tow rope stretched between two floating buoys. Aurora learned to nudge the rope with her melon, then tug gently, signaling her readiness for the next training step. In time, the dolphins began to herd schools of small reef fish toward Lena's wading nets, and instinct Lena shaped into a cooperative fishing technique that could feed Coral Haven without destructive nets. A new rhythm of cooperation. By the end of the week, a new rhythm governed the lagoon. Villagers rose at dawn to watch Lena and her dolphin partners slip into the water. By mid-morning, the first fish would arrive in woven baskets, fresh and bountiful. Children clapped at each successful net haul, and elders nodded in respectful approval as Lena offered them the first share. Along the shoreline, weather-worn nets were rolled away for repairs, replaced in daily practice by gentle dolphin-guided gathering. In those early days, the boundary between human and cetacean dissolved in laughing splashes and shared bounty. Lena stood knee-deep in the water, her dark hair plastered by sea spray, as Aurora circled her in graceful arcs. Together, they had forged the first links of friendship beneath the surface, a promise shimmering in every rainbow-tinted wave. By the end of the week, Coral Haven's new rhythm had grown strong, dolphins herding schools of sardines into wading nets, fishermen hauling in baskets brimming with silvery fish, children cheering at each bounty. But on the dawn after the harvest moon, Lena awoke to a sky heavy with gunmetal clouds. The wind carried a faint tang of fresh water and silt, and when she reached the lagoon's edge, the coral head she'd once admired lay ghostly white beneath a veil of brown-tinged runoff. Overhead, Aurora and her pod echoed distress calls into the murky water, long, mournful whistles that vibrated through Lena's chest. She activated her hydrophone and heard a new undercurrent. The dolphins' pulses were erratic, their foraging clicks sharp and dissonant. Sliding into the shallows, Lena found fish fleeing the stirred sediments, darting away from the reef to open sea. Villagers gathered on the dock, their faces etched with dread as they peered through rain that began as a drizzle and quickly turned into a pounding downpour. That afternoon, Lena donned her mask and dove beneath the surface, each kick stirring cloudy plumes that blurred her vision. She followed Aurora's sleek silhouette down the reef slope toward a deep coral trench. There, in a shadowed corridor of collapsed bommies, she beheld the reef's true devastation. Vast skeletons of staghorn and elkhorn coral lay bleached to chalk white, their once intricate branches reduced to jagged rubble. No parrotfish nipped at algae, no graceful surgeonfish wove through sea fans, only silence. Lena's heart tightened as she brushed a finger over a coral stem so brittle it crumbled at her touch. Breaking the surface, Lena gasped for air as rain plastered her hair to her mask. Aurora surfaced beside her, pressing her rostrum against Lena's leg in a gesture of anxious solidarity. On the dock, Chief Toma and the elders watched with grim resignation. "It's the heavy rains," Toma called over the thunder. "Erosion, silt from the valley is suffocating our reef." Villagers muttered of curses and old sea spirits angered. Lena shook her head, lifting her voice above the storm. "This isn't magic, it's runoff. We can act, but we must move fast. Aurora and I will lead you to the healthiest pockets of coral. We'll start restorations at first light." As lightning forked across the sky, Lena felt the weight of Coral Haven's future settle on her shoulders. At her side, Aurora let out a clear, determined chuff. Together, human, dolphin, and community, Lena vowed to heal the reef's wounds, for without its living labyrinth of coral, both village and pod would lose everything they held dear. By first light the storm had passed, leaving Coral Haven's bay awash in pearly calm. Lena Marlowe stood at the water's edge, her long hair plastered by overnight rain, as a flotilla of village canoes slid down the slipway. In each canoe, young men and women balanced woven baskets brimming with coral fragments harvested from the community's floating nursery, broken branches of acropora and porites that had been carefully reared on submerged ropes. Shafts of dawn light quivered through the mist as the flotilla followed Lena out past the reef crest. Just beyond the battered bommies, the water plummeted into a sheltered bay ringed by underwater cliffs. Here, Lena had recorded on her hydrophone the strongest dolphin sonar echoes, a sign that pockets of still-living coral lay hidden in fissures. Leading the way with graceful arcs of her tail, Aurora and two companions appeared at the surface, their dorsal fins cutting through glassy water like polished silver. At Lena's signal, the villagers slipped into snorkeling gear and fanned out in loose lines above the reef wall. Underwater, Lena paused to adjust her mask and watched through goggles as Aurora dipped below. Guided by the dolphin's sonorous clicks, Lena dove into a narrow canyon where corals formed an archway over the sandy floor. Here, amid tangled rubble, tiny polyps still clung to living branches. Lena knelt on the substrate and extended a gloved hand, a finger-thick fragment of healthy Passalopera coral. With a precise twist, she wedged it into a crack on a bleached Acropora trunk. Almost immediately, a cleaner shrimp alighted on the new outplant, its white antennae fluttering in welcome. Above her, villagers worked in synchronized ballet. Some held the rope lines that funneled plankton-rich currents through the outplanting site, while others used wooden mallets to secure coral fragments onto skeletons with biodegradable epoxy. On cue, Aurora swept past in a pulse of sonar, stirring a plume of plankton that drifted down like golden dust, nourishing the fragile recruit polyps below. When a prowling crown-of-thorns starfish appeared on the edge of the nursery, Aurora's sharp whistle summoned Lena's attention. Racing over, Lena and two villagers pried the starfish from the reef with careful tugs, preventing it from devouring the baby corals. Meanwhile, the dolphins formed a loose guard, their silhouettes circling above like sentinels, deterring other predators. By midday, dozens of fragments lay snug in place, each tagged with a tiny, colored bead to track growth. Lena ascended to the surface, breath steaming, and watched Aurora nudge her calf toward a newly planted coral cluster, as though approving the sight. Boats motored in with buckets of algae spores, which Lena released into the current. The spores drifted among the outplants, settling into cracks to form the first vestiges of new growth. That evening, as lanterns swayed on the docks and villagers shared coconut stew, Lena reviewed her underwater footage. Every frame showed coral polyps unfurling their tiny tentacles, shimmering in the filtered light. In the hush of sunset, Aurora's distant chirp echoed across the lagoon, a promise that, with human care and dolphin guidance, Coral Haven's reef would bloom again. 6 months after the last fragments were planted, Coral Haven's lagoon shimmered with renewed life. At dawn's first light, Lena Marlowe glided across glassy water in her skiff, scanning the now vibrant reef below. Brilliant swaths of living coral, pinks of Acropora, lime-green pillow corals, and the bronze fans of Gorgonia danced in gentle currents, their polyps fully extended. Schools of parrotfish and snapper wove through the coral arches, grazing and spawning amid the kaleidoscope of color. Above, spinner dolphins leapt skyward in rhythmic arcs, their cries of joy echoing across the bay. Lena steered toward the northern channel, where a crowd of villagers had gathered for the inauguration of the Marine Guardians program. Under a banner of woven palm fronds reading "Fins of Friendship, Stewardship in Action," children in brightly dyed shirts brandished handmade posters celebrating reef life. Elders wore lace-style garlands of dried seaweed and jasmine blossoms. Chief Toma stood at the water's edge, flanked by the village council and a pod of dolphins. Aurora, now fully grown and bearing a sleek sapphire blue tag, gently bobbed in the shallows. Friends of the reef, Toma called in Halyuni, his voice carrying over the lapping surf, we stand upon memories of empty nets and silent waters. Today, led by Lena Marlowe and guided by our dolphin partners, we pledge to safeguard this living treasure for our children and theirs. He gestured toward Lena, and she stepped forward, knees half submerged, hands raised in greeting. Lena released a small clutch of fish oil cubes into the current. Instantly, the dolphins surged forward, catching each treat before surfacing in playful celebration. Applause rippled through the crowd. Then Lena spoke of the Marine Guardians, a rotating patrol of trained villagers who would monitor reef health, prevent destructive fishing, and maintain the floating nurseries that had given rise to the outplanted corals. She presented each guardian with a carved conch shell whistle, a symbol of their bond with the cetacean stewards. When whale song or dolphin calls echoed through the lagoon, it would signal the start of every watch. Throughout the day, children led educational snorkeling tours. Lena guided a gaggle of wide-eyed youngsters through shallows where juvenile anemones waved their stinging tentacles like ribbons. Above them, Aurora and her calf swam in graceful tandem, demonstrating how dolphins could herd schools of small fish toward recovery zones, an ecological service that replaced nets while nurturing both human and marine livelihoods. Families paddled transparent hull kayaks overhead, marveling at wrasses darting beneath their paddles and the kaleidoscope of coral life unfolding below. As afternoon waned into golden dusk, the community gathered on the wooden jetty for the unveiling of the Fins of Friendship monument. Covered in a rough-hewn cloth, the bronze sculpture depicted Aurora leaping through a ring of stylized waves crafted by local artisans. With a flourish, Lena and Chief Toma pulled away the covering. Gasps rose in a single breath as dolphin silhouettes danced in the statue's curves. Children pressed their hands to the cool bronze, and elders traced the rippling forms with tears of pride. To cap the festivities, fishermen delivered the day's catch, an abundant haul of grouper, mackerel, and sweet white bait that would feed the village tonight. Lena joined them in the cookhouse, her hands dusted with seasoning, as laughter and the scent of grilled fish filled the air. Above, Aurora and her pod surfaced in the dying light, chuffing in contentment as if to share the meal's celebration. Before retreating to her skiff, Lena paused on the jetty's edge for one last look. The reef's gentle hum vibrated through the water, a living testament to human resolve and cetacean guidance. Schools of juvenile damselfish glinted like living jewels in the rippled sunlight, and a lone hawksbill turtle drifted among the coral heads, grazing on the restored seagrass beds. As lanterns were lit and woven into floating votives on the lagoon, Lena realized Coral Haven had become more than a village. It was a model of coexistence, where the wisdom of dolphins and the care of humans had knitted a frayed ecosystem back together. And high above the waves, Aurora's dorsal fin arced in farewell, a silent promise that, as long as friendship guided them, the reef and its people would thrive for generations to come.